All right, welcome everyone to the panel, Finding Mental Health and Resilience in Sustainability. We're gonna start with a nice little video here.
What possesses two idiots like yourselves to teach 8-year-olds that the planet is doomed?
The children are constantly bombarded with climate change. It is all over the news.
It's our job to deconstruct it so that they can process it.
Good for you. You deconstructed my little girl into a coma.
Now, Renata, look, we scheduled an assembly for this evening. Okay, you are not the only parent complaining, just by far the loudest.
You're pitiful.
Okay, this is gonna come as a shock to you. This school is actually here to serve all the children, not just Amabella.
You think because of this whole bankruptcy thing? That the school thinks I don't matter? I will be rich again. I will rise up. I will buy a fucking polar bear for every kid in this school.
All right, shout out to Laura Dern and the writers of Big Little Lies for this highly emotional planet placement moment to die for. I am Lena Welch. I'll be your moderator for the next hour. I'm a junior executive board member at YEA and a sustainability consultant for Green Spark Group. I currently act as an eco coordinator for 2 HBO TV shows, and I'm designing online courses to teach sustainable production. This slideshow that I'm about to show you will have a lot of data, so don't feel like you have to read it all now. I'll be sending out a downloadable PDF. So give your undivided attention to the conversation while we're all here together. So a little about my journey to get here. I shifted from a background in production to working in sustainability, which was propelled by 2 major factors.
What possesses 2 idiots?
That needs to be next slide. All right. One is the helplessness I felt as a production and seeing this and the amount of waste our industry produces. 2 is the demanding, unjust, and at times the brutal culture of the production world, which was amplifying my already diagnosed anxiety and depression. Even Lexapro can't fix that. The culmination of these factors begged me to question, how does climate change affect our mental health? The answer, so much that the American Psychological Association created a 69-page climate change guide to help teach mental health to care providers on the topic. Rarely do we connect carbon emissions with mental health, but eco-anxiety exists for anyone who can see the writing on the wall. Some will ignore it and hope that someone else will deal with it. Some freeze in the face of it, unable to act. Some see the huge undertaking ahead and perhaps are ready to take it on, but they just don't know where to start. What these 3 states of being have in common is that they welcome the normalization of inaction. You might have seen data telling us that the declining health of our climate affects people of color and those who are either homeless or living in poverty at much higher rates. Those of us living in communities of privilege are less likely to lose our lives or livelihoods as a result of the destruction of our ecosystems, waters, and skies. The populations and companies who are creating the most pollution and waste are the whitest and the wealthiest, yet they are more likely to survive the climate crisis and in some cases even thrive within the chaos of the climate disaster. And it's the same endangered communities that have far less access to mental health support. As professionals who are working in a thriving industry and in some cases receiving great health benefits through our unions, we are guilty of being major contributors without finding ourselves at the butt end of the crisis. Yes, the film industry's carbon footprint is not nearly as high as manufacturing, transportation, or livestock, but it's certainly not sustainable as it exists, considering the speed our society is traveling towards more health and climate catastrophes. For too long, the entertainment has been happy to normalize inaction towards climate change in the same way that they've normalized, well, a lack of diversity on set, being told we don't recycle on this set. It can initiate different feelings in different people, especially after working a 12 to 16-hour day. But let's take a closer look at some of those feelings. Negative pressures without positive release breeds depression. A study done in 2015 determined that those whose job it is to entertain the general public considered the possibility of suicide up to 7 times more than the general population. When comparing results to that of the general population, it was found that anxiety levels were 10 times higher and depression was 5 times higher amongst entertainment workers. Our industry needs new normals. The sustainability department role is not only to better our planet, but we are also responsible for the betterment of people. Doing something right can boost self-esteem, and it can be a momentary reminder that we are resilient creatures. And only when our employers, the producers, the studios, and vendors provide an infrastructure that allows for sustainability will we have this success. Oh, I'm thrilled and relieved to hand it over to our panelists here. First, we have Hillary Cohen and Sam Liu, who are ADs, or assistant directors, and founders and owners of Everyday Action. They'll tell you more about what that is. I got Monique Figueredo. She's a former mental health worker, but now she is a co-owner and founder of Compostable LA. We have Giles Barron and Charlotte Michelle. They are a partnership of an AD, an assistant director, and a locations coordinator, and they are owners of Simply STEM. Also, they'll tell you more about that. And Smiley Karana, who is a freelance sustainability coordinator and host of the Sustainable Act podcast. I feel so grateful to have such amazing young entrepreneurial sustainable professionals with me right now. First question I want to ask them is for each of you to kind of reintroduce yourself, adding any details about what you do, and then also throw in there a quick pitch about your favorite like low maintenance way of changing workplace culture without rocking the boats with the higher ups. And I'm just going to stop sharing my screen so everyone can see your lovely faces. Stop share. All right, and let's hand it over to Hillary and Sam.
Hi, I'm Hillary.
Hi, I'm Sam.
We're the founders of Everyday Action. We're a nonprofit that reallocates gourmet catering to those in need in Los Angeles. So we service a lot, anywhere from San Pedro to Valencia. And we pick up the gourmet catering leftovers at the end of the meal and bring them to homeless encampments, refrigerators, or shelters. I personally, my easiest way of giving back has always been to help people. So I've always tried to help like the PAs, stand-ins, and background in my life with food. So if there's extra food or a snack that's being thrown away, I try to just slide it to those who need without anyone noticing. Sammy?
I think for me personally, I think a really easy way to not rock the boat with anyone upper is just this change has to start with just you. So, I started carrying silverware and then collecting the plastic silverware, and we make use of it in our business.
Awesome. Now let's throw it over to Monique Figueredo.
Hi everyone. I'm Mo. I started Compostable LA, which is a compost pickup service. So we help divert food waste from landfills. And I'm actually usually all about rocking the boat. So I actually was kind of going to mirror what Sam said, and that sometimes the best way to instill change is to be individual action. And that actually helps a lot with climate anxiety, because then at least you feel like you're doing the best that you can. And it starts with natural conversations like on set where you're just talking and people are like, why'd you bring your water bottle or whatever? And then you can kind of drop little hints here and there and have it be a really natural change. So I'm with Sam on starting with you, but I'm also all about rocking the boat. So I'm your girl if you wanna start a little like revolution.
Yes, I will revolutionize with you any day. Giles Barron and Charlotte Michelle.
Guys. I'm Charlotte. We both work in the film industry here in England, and we have started our company. We're still working in the film industry, but we started our side hustle business, which is selling compostable packaging to caterers. We've also started doing home compostable garment covers for the costume department, and we're looking to do everything else. And then we're going to start an education program of helping crew put waste in the right bins, and just
so learning to educate basically, and we've been
Yeah.
educating ourselves throughout this whole process, which has been part of the best part of it.
Yeah, and we just think that's, you know, just telling our colleagues around us that just little bits of information is the best thing that we can start to do, and then get angry a little bit. I sort of forever pull things out of bins in production kitchens and say, guys, what are you doing? But yeah, just little things like that.
Alrighty, and then over to Smiley, Karana.
Hi everyone, I'm Smiley. I have been working in the industry for a few years now, but I started out as a producer, like for short films while I was in film school, and that's when I started learning about the impact of what our industry is creating. And so when I started working in the industry as a PA, working in the office, a producer assistant, I saw firsthand how far behind we were as an industry, despite everything that we've been, you know, there's leaders in our industry that have been working for like the last decade in providing information, doing the research, and fighting for, you know, a better system and planet, but we're still so behind. So that's when my interest began in, you know, I guess leading those discussions, and how I ended up becoming a sustainability coordinator. And I also, to follow up with that, that's why I started the Sustainable Act podcast, is to continue those conversations, that dialogue outside of set. Because I think truly, like what everyone's been saying so far, it has to come from within. It has to start with you, and it's beyond our workplace. It's like, how do we adapt and create these changes for the long term in our home life, in our personal life, as well as our professional life? And so that's what my hope is with the Sustainable Act, is that people can listen to ideas and be introduced to all these other amazing people that are doing the work, and hopefully be inspired to change. And I think my way of giving back or rocking the boat, I like what everyone said, but I think what I do a lot is just listening and understanding, showing empathy towards everybody's thoughts, and also being that resource. You know, if somebody doesn't know how to go about survey, or need more information, or have a concern, it's just being that person to listen and see how we can create those changes. I think that's been the highlight of my job in any set I go to, is those conversations I have with the PA or the grips or the ADs, and like hearing their thoughts and perspective, and seeing how we can come together, collaborate, and, you know, be better.
Beautiful,
Nice.
beautiful. All right, well, now I want to go to like a little more free form conversation here, just asking kind of some targeted questions. First of all, you know, bringing this all 360 to the topic is, how has sustainable low impact career and or lifestyle affected your own mental health and your unique experience? And anyone can jump in.
I'll jump in. So you know, I worked in mental health for 8 years before this, and then I switched to sustainability. And why I made that switch, and it took me a really long time to figure this out, is that the core of the work I wanted to be doing was in service to my community, in service to everybody having an equally beneficial life, whether you're, you know, impacted by schizophrenia or don't have access to healthy foods. But I found that the mental health industry was really tough for me and my mental health, especially when you continuously see funding being cut and resources being cut, and people you care deeply about not getting the care they need. And so I had to find a way that I could still do what was seemingly my calling in life, which is to care for others, without it being so emotionally upsetting to me. And so that is how I came into the sustainability world. I actually find it quite healing because I'm now surrounded by a bunch of people that have the same passion. You know, most of the time, everybody in sustainability cares about the other. And so you're working with these people that are super considerate and empathetic and giving and generous. And it's so rejuvenating because, you know, if your cup is empty, they are there to refill it for you, because we all have this kind of, I mean, otherwise, why are you doing sustainability? Usually you just wouldn't, because it is a little bit more hard. You know, it's a little bit more difficult. So I found that the sustainability world has actually been rejuvenating to me, and a very supportive, welcoming, loving community.
Yeah. It was actually, this time last year, I think, I just finished on season 4 of The Crown. I was a key production coordinator on it. And actually, I was sort of at the end of a complete burnout. I did all 4 seasons of the show, horrible hours, you know, sort of 18-hour days, and just a complete burnout. And then the pandemic hit in the last week of filming, and everything shut down, and I didn't go back to work for 6 months. And Giles and I sort of had that time to start our business, something that we'd wanted to do for a long time. And actually, our industry is an industry which doesn't give you any time. So we're really thankful for that, because we've managed to do what we wanted to do and put all our energy into it. Otherwise, we wouldn't have been able to do this. And we're lucky that we're now sort of both working on films, but the business is at a good level, which we can do both. And our colleagues are now saying to us, this is amazing what you've done. Like, this is brilliant. Like, thank you so much. And, you know, the people that we're meeting and talking to, they really appreciate it. And they sort of think, oh, why didn't I spend 6 months doing that? That's amazing. So,
and one of the biggest things that we've really found is actually, say, as you rightly pointed out, Mo, there's actually sort of like the community that we've managed to find by starting this business, and then the collaborations and the people that have been reaching out to us throughout that process. And that's since we've, say, started doing this, just, and say, have been there to support us, like from the absolute offset. And that was, say, from our first, say, customers, which are, say, friends of ours being in the catering side, to, say, people that now want to collaborate with us that have, say, similar businesses that want to try and help close the loop and try and hopefully educate people to make sure that they have a better impact in the industry as a whole, which is really amazing, and it's so exciting as well.
Yeah.
Sam and I are in a very similar space. I had been in AD, as had Sam been, for about 10 years. I work on the same television show for 9 seasons, and I was beyond burnt out. I was like a version of myself that I like did not recognize. And the day COVID, I remember as a key, because you always plan tomorrow, they shut us down at like 10 o'clock on the last day on this day. And I was like, we're done. It's over. We're done. Goodbye. You know, I was like so excited, and everyone else was so upset. And I was like, see you later. You know, I was absolute burnt out. And I'm a sewer. So it started by sewing face masks, and I sewed like 5,000 face masks and had all these sew-a-thons, but I like started this life of service and really couldn't let it go. You know, I couldn't go back to production the way I had been living my life. And for me, my calling is people. Like, I just want to help other people, because I feel like at the end of the day, if you're number 1 on the call sheet or you're the PA, we're all the same person. And I've never really quite understood that hierarchy in our business to begin with. And it's really bothered me. And Sam and I have worked together for the past few years, and we sat down, and I was just like, I don't think I can go back to work and throw the food out anymore. Like, it's always bothered me on a level that like I think about every day. And I think that we need to like take this time and figure it out. And we did. You know, we got like 501c3 status. We wrote our own bylaws. We got liability insurance, and we both worked full time this season. Sam on set as a second, and I ran COVID testing as a first AD. I don't think I knew I could work 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, but because it was helping people in between, the other didn't matter. Like, it was so much better. And Sam and she can talk about her last experience and how like that has changed what we do, but I'm so fulfilled and so happy helping people who need help, and not, no offense, but like famous people who don't need my time. And it like just is so much more fulfilling on a level that I can't even describe. And I just need to do that. Like I can't take care of people who don't need my help anymore. I just want to help people who genuinely need it. And we need to stop throwing the food out, because to say it's illegal, not only is it incorrect, it's just silly.
Yeah. And to go off of that, I mean, my burnout time came after the pandemic because we went back to work and we were doing both full time, and it was really manageable. And then I got taken, you know, when they tell you it's going to be an easy 2 weeks on blue screen, it's not. And that job really burnt me out, and I just finished it a couple weeks ago, a week and a half ago, not long. And I honestly spent the last month on that set. Not really upset with the people, just upset that I wasn't doing what I really love doing, and that I didn't have the time because of that particular job. It was keeping me from the job I really love doing. So to go straight back into our nonprofit work right after a really tough show was, for me, the mental lift I needed. You know, we were looking for a drop place for a really late drop pickup on Friday, the day I had to leave town. And it was not a stressful event for me because everyone I spoke to along the way gave me this person's number and this person gave me that number. So it was the same thing that you were talking about, Monique. It's like a sense of community and working with these people. You know, if I'm calling someone for a production problem, I'm going to get a lot of angry, emotional people. Whereas, you know, I had a nonprofit problem and a donation problem, and within like 3 phone calls, someone had fixed me up with someone else, and then like that fell through, and then immediately someone fixed me up with someone else, and we got the food to someone that night. And you know, I spent maybe 2 hours on the phone, but it was 2 hours of fun because I just met more people, you know, in the space. And yeah, it was like the mental gift that I didn't realize for years as an AD that I really needed in my life.
Yeah, I've had a lot of ups and downs when it comes, and I'm sure we all have experienced that when it comes to mental health and doing the sustainability work. I have to agree with Monique about being in that room full of like people that are all passionate and compassionate and kind and supportive. And I always feel so empowered, like especially even this panel being around like this energy where we're all like collective in terms of like what we want and our goals and sharing our experiences and wanting to be better. It's like I always leave feeling empowered and happy and positive, and I take that energy, and then you're kind of like hit with reality when it comes to like those road bumps or dealing with people that just don't understand or don't want to be, you know, on that same page as you, or seeing the reality. Like I think for me it was last year when I live in Vancouver, Canada, and I'm sure we've all seen or heard of the California wildfires that happened last year. BC got a lot of the secondhand smoke, and I think that moment that really hit me because I was seeing that reality of like our climate crisis, and it seems like all the work that I was doing and like we're doing together as a society is like a drop in the ocean when it comes to like what we currently are facing with, and that really like affects my mental health. But also I think it's important to be mindful of where you're shifting your energy towards, where you're giving your energy towards when it comes to doing this work too, and not always focusing on the bad, because that really could drain you and it's hard. And also it just sometimes feels so isolating and alone, like even coordinating sustainable practices on set, you'll have like all these people that are like, yeah, I hear you, like we're here, we're doing the work, but then there's days where it's like I feel all alone and I feel like nobody's like understanding what I'm doing, and I'm fighting this fight by myself. And so it always fluctuates when it comes to mental health, but I think it's like an ongoing thing.
Oh, I feel so seen by all of you all. It's just some really like experiential commonalities there for you all. So my next question is, how long should we expect like a learning curve to take on your expertise, whether that be integrating new sustainable products, or composting food scraps, or running a sustainable show, seamlessly donating food. I know at first it's not going to go perfectly according to plan, but like generally, how long should someone expect that there is problems before it becomes like easier than what it was before?
For me and Sam, it's really just a mindset. We have a system in place in Los Angeles to pick up all of the food. And for us, it's just fighting people's mindset. One of our very first shows was the Disney Freeform, Good Trouble. And for months and months and months, they just said, like, you can't say you're doing this. You can't say we're doing all this stuff. And then like 2 weeks ago, they emailed us and said, hey, we'd like to photograph you and put you on our social media. And I was like, when? Like, yes, please. Like, this is amazing. And then like in the same day, another production company's like, oh, I'm sorry, we can't donate our food. We're afraid of getting sued. And I'm like, but why? Like, just why? So for us, it's really a mindset, because all you need to do is, because Sam and I are ADs, we just need the call sheet to be put on your distro, and that's it. And we can coordinate really the rest of it, because that's in our bones. So for us, it's on changing mindset. I think we're getting close. For us, we really want to say that it's uncomfortable not to use everyday action. We want it to be just on every set. It's like, just like you recycle your bottles, you don't throw your food out, because it's really silly. And from just this week alone, I just did our count. We had 6 sets and it was 1,700 food items, and that's 6 sets. So if we did every set in Los Angeles, it's really just kind of shocking. So for us, it's like mindset, and we're working on telling that story to get over the mindset.
I have to agree. I think that's so powerful. Like that, I've seen that firsthand too. Like just shifting your mindset. Like I've been on productions where people have said, like, sorry, that's impossible. Like we can't do this. Like whether it's donating food or whether it's bringing in solar powered generators or whatever it is. And then you see other productions where, or like being surrounded by people that are like, yes, we can. And then they make it happen and prove it. It's just about doing that little bit, like just taking a little bit extra steps or effort in understanding that it can happen, especially working in the film and TV industry. Like we can make anything happen. Like this is something another producer I've talked to has said many times. Like one day we're in space, another day we're in the farm. Like we create stories, we create worlds. Saying that, oh, this is impossible, it's more of a lazy excuse, I'd say. So definitely, and I feel like there is no timestamp to creating change. I think it's an ongoing learning curve. Like we're constantly learning, especially like with technology. Like we constantly are adopting new technology, new practices, the way we're doing stuff. And even when it comes to sustainability and how we do things, there's always going to be a better way. And I think we're constantly like working our way towards that, but it definitely starts with mindset and having that yes we can mentality, I think.
Yeah, I think.
Yeah, no, so true. I completely agree with that.
Yeah.
I think also the first thing is people are just willing to spend that little bit of money, because this is one of the big things as well.
Yeah.
It does come down to cost sometimes, especially what we're trying to do at the moment in terms of getting rid of it and getting rid of the waste properly. So we don't have a wonderful thing such as everyday action over here at this point, and it's slowly just trying to get the producers to think, actually, yes, I don't mind spending that extra £5 or £10 a day just to try and make sure that it does happen and go to the right place. But equally, then normally you need a body to do that as well. You need someone to actually be a part of that process to make it actually happen. But I think somebody just said something really interesting then. There's not a timestamp, because it's always going to be continuously changing. It's going to continuously evolve, especially everything that we're trying to do, and just trying to close those loops to make it actually happen. But hopefully by adding and creating these systems and putting them in place, so everyone's just going to start thinking it. And going back to one of our original first points about being an individual, as soon as more and more individuals get on this collective mindset, keep on thinking that this is the right thing to do, it will happen and it will change. And then it takes that producer to do it as well.
Yeah. And I think one thing that could be challenging too is greenwashing and the unlearning we usually have to teach people. So once they're on board, they might kind of make decisions that are maybe the easiest one. And if anybody in sustainability knows, being sustainable takes time, and it takes a lot of time to know your craft, to make sure you can avoid the greenwashing that's around there. And so if people try and cut corners because they're out of time or out of money or whatever, then something kind of falls through and you're brought on. You have to unlearn and unteach them the greenwashing that they might have based those decisions off of, and that is causing problems. So I think that in the composting world is really tough because a lot of compostable products are greenwashed, and we don't want composting to end up like the recycling industry where it's just so contaminated that it's no longer a feasible option. So that, in addition to the perspective taking, I would add that one on.
Mhm.
Yeah, completely agree.
Yeah, I love that. I encounter that all the time. Oh, so many misconceptions with the donation of food. It's perfectly legal to do. It's just people spread these ideas that have no truth to them. So I was going to move on to the next question. Unless Sam, do you have anything to add to that, or is Hillary spoken for everyday action on that? Is she frozen?
Her
Might be
laptop
frozen.
might be overheating, I hear. So stand by on frozen Sam.
Okay, cool. So my next question, and it's kind of a dual question, is like, where do your clients or coworkers or colleagues experience roadblocks, and also where do they see the most reward for taking those actions towards sustainability?
I can jump in. From personally what I've experienced and witnessed, roadblocks often happen from when people feel overwhelmed or they're not sure what to do or how to go about it. They know, like we all know that this is a crisis. Like we have the information, we have the science. What I feel like is a roadblock is like that's preventing people from taking action is they don't know how. They don't know what to do, and also this idea of like, if I'm not perfect or if I'm not doing everything right, then what's the point of doing it too? And so getting past that mindset and mind shift is just taking it a day at a time, and like, you're doing your best and what can you do individually, and also just learning how to go about it. I think that, and then rewarding, it's like the opposite of that is like feeling that sense of when you see the fruits of your actions, right? You see that like that impact that you created does go a long way, even if it's going one day at a time, even if it's just by recycling or composting or donating food. Like, yeah, in the grand scheme of things, it may not seem like a lot, but that was more than what, if you hadn't done that. So I think getting past that like overwhelming anxiety and feeling the pressure of not knowing what to do, and then doing it, feeling that reward. I don't know.
Yeah, I would say growing up, the thing that always bothered me, my parents would say when I want to do something is like, oh, we can't do that, it's too complicated. And like, that's like the one phrase that always has stuck out of my brain as an adult, is like, I never want something as an adult to be too complicated, because ultimately nothing is too complicated. We've gone to the moon, like we cure cancer, like nothing is too complicated. It's really just taking the time to be in that complicated space. Especially in an industry where millions and millions and millions of dollars are spent, like we said, to go anywhere, to do anything, to take you out of a world. I remember like I left the independent world coming to the union set, and someone would describe an AC hose to me and I had no idea what they were talking about. And now I see like an AC hose stuck on an exterior tent where the AC is literally just blowing into nowhere. And I think about the amount of money that must have spent for that AC hose to exist and the AC tech that was there. And I was like, if we could spend this much money to blow AC into nowhere, like we can also take care of like what's happening on the other side of that conversation. And I think that like that really needs to be said. And like for me, I think that admitting that we've done something wrong is like the difficult part, right? Hollywood doesn't want to say that we're going to do this because it points out what we haven't been doing. And that's okay, right? Change comes from saying like we did something and we're not proud of it. So I've been on set for 10 years and I've watched a lot of food be thrown out, and I've gone home because I just didn't have time to deal with it. But now I have time to deal with it. So I think just changing that thought in your head of being like, oh, I can't do this, just like you can. Like it's really not that hard. And if you do like one little bit, it's all going to add up.
Yeah. I would say too, you know, I think a roadblock is money, but it's a farce. It's, you know, my cousin worked in the costume department, and she said, you know, she started an upcycled clothing company based off of her work in the movie industry. And she said the moment that sparked it for her is when she was in the clothing storage and she stepped over a $10,000 bracelet that was just laying on the ground in wardrobe storage. And she was just like, this is absurd. And it's true. And so often there's that discussion, money speaks, and they say they don't have money, and that's because everything's rushed and done, you know, quick, I need this tomorrow, I need this, you know, and so they get 4 options of the thing. And like I said earlier, nothing in sustainability is quick, you know, unless you've really honed your craft. But even then, you know, to be truly sustainable, you need to be sustainable to yourself as a person, and working in that rapid environment isn't sustainable. You'll burn out. So sustainability doesn't just talk about the environment. It talks about individual sustainability, a community of sustainability, financial sustainability. And in order for the movie industry, I think, or the entertainment industry in general, to kind of shift that way, it's really kind of internalizing the true colors of sustainability. And so I think that's the real roadblock, is saying, like, you have the money, it's being misused due to now. And I think one of the ways to combat that, and one of the greatest successors, is making sure your metrics are on lock. Like knowing exactly how much you've diverted or saved someone or redirected food, and letting them be able to have those metrics to kind of talk about and brag about. I think that is really a good, not only antidote, but like success story, something that people can feel really proud of. That's my biggest recommendation to anybody, is make sure you're tracking those metrics and then sharing them with the community.
Yeah, I found the roadblocks to be the individuals. So with these home compostable costume covers, we've been contacting our friends in the costume department, and, you know, people that we know. And sorry, my kitten is jumping at and scratching at me. And my friends in the costume department have gone, oh, I'll ask the costume supervisor. And then they come back to me and they go, oh, it's too expensive. We can't afford them. And I'm like, but that's rubbish. And then actually, so that roadblock is that individual. It's that one costume supervisor in a team of 40 that's saying, no, we're not going to do that. So that's super difficult. You know, it's trying to convince them, and they say, oh, well, you know, you can just buy the biodegradable ones. They're half the price. So I'm saying, yeah, they're still plastic though. They're biodegradable, but anything can biodegrade. And then they're like, oh, right. And then they sort of just get on with their day. So that's what I'm finding frustrating, is like the education to say, come on now. And we're super lucky that we have people that are supporting us and actually are telling their friends about us. And actually, just before we jumped on this call, we had an email to say from somebody to say, somebody on a massive Warner's film in London is interested in your garment bags. I mean, if a small BBC film can afford them, which they could, then they definitely can. But it's going to be down to the individual. So it's sad. So everyone needs to get on board to make it work, really. Otherwise, yeah.
Can I add on? I really admire like everything you're saying about, especially like the fast versus slow economy too, like how we're in this like sustainability means to preserve long term. So it is going to take time, but then we work in this industry where it's so fast paced. Like we're building a set and we're tearing it down, we're on to the next show. And so people aren't thinking long term. For example, garment bags or set builds or anything, it's like people are just thinking and focusing on like the now. What can we do right now? And then once it's like done being used, it's like, okay, off to the next show. And that's why I think a lot of people don't start realizing like that circular economy mindset that we want to adopt. So it, like, to just add on to everybody's points though, it has to start from that individual mindset too, like, and thinking long term and slowing down our process, and, you know, being able to understand that we can take things and take it on to our next shows or take it on to the next, like, how can we utilize things for the long term and slow it down? I think that
yeah.
would think about it.
And if we can make, if if us as a collective, and this is where I mean, like, I love rocking the boat. If every consumer as a collective is forcing H&M to be uncomfortable with fast fashion, which is exactly what's happening, then we as a collective can also force other industries that are practicing unsustainable behavior, such as working 18-hour days. We can start demanding that we don't see those things anymore. And I love using the fast fashion industry as an example because it's so nebulous and so externalized. It's in entirely other countries with people we don't talk to, don't relate to. And it's cheap and it's a great marker of creativity. People love feeling like dressing up and feeling great, but we're able to rally around and make uncool fast fashion. And I think we could do the same for the entertainment industry and the ways that finds itself unsustainable.
The same thing happens with me and Sam. Like, we'll get a new show and they're like, oh, we're not going to have much food to donate. And I'm like, that's cool. I'm like, but like on Friday, you're going to have like 100 background and then they're going to go home before lunch. You're going to have like 100 meals you didn't think about. And like every single time we're left with so much food and they're like, oh, I just didn't realize. I'm like, well, I know.
But also, like, the roadblock of like focusing on just the numbers is also, something that we have to encounter too, because every meal counts. Like, if you were out on the street passing them out like we have, that when you're out of meals, it's heartbreaking. So even those 5 meals that you had left over, they're going to mean something to someone who needs it. It's not necessarily about just numbers. And I'm sorry I froze up a little, but I don't know if you talked to Hillary at all about our roadblock of like liability. That seems to be like a really easy throwaway one when we are one of the only nonprofits that has a large liability policy, as well as like we really did our research on passing over the liability to us. And we still, even when we answer, your donor waiver that you're signing with us signs the liability to us, we still get the standard answer of like, oh, well, that's a risk of liability, so we're not going to use you guys. But, it's all about changing the mindset of each like individual and studio.
Yeah, and another thing would be like what we already discussed is like unlearning and admitting where we could, where like what we said about Hollywood doesn't like to admit where they're wrong or when they're wrong. I think that's another thing too, is like unlearning, and instead of feeling like you need to defend yourself, like I've had these like conversations with certain department heads where I'm like, I think this is where we can improve, and they'll just wave me off like, yeah, we're doing this and this and this. Like instead of sitting down and understanding and unlearning what we've been doing and how can we be doing it, because we can always be doing better. Like there's no, we're perfect. And I get a lot of that too. And I think we need to get past that, like needing to defend yourself and proving yourself as, perfect. Because even I myself, living a more sustainable life, or coordinating sustainability, I'm nowhere near perfect. And so I think that's another roadblock too that we experience.
Yeah, I think for the individual too, the striving to be perfect is such a fool's game because it's not. And then and to harp back on the numbers, once you get the numbers and you think like, oh, avoiding 1 fork per day, plastic fork per day is not like a big deal. But then at the end of a season, if you do the numbers, you're avoiding much more plastic than that. So loving this, and I'm so glad to have you all together because it is a shift in mind change, and this is part of it, just talking about it and maybe easing people's worries about what direction to go in. And speaking of what direction to go in, my last question for you guys is what is your vision for the future of entertainment industry that serves justice to the communities in which we film, and society at large? Like, what does that look like to you? What is and how does that vision make you feel too?
I mean, for everyday action, for me, I want every single solitary production in the globe to stop throwing their food out. I came from the independent world where my mom would make the lunch, which was like tuna sandwiches. So like my first day on a union set was like, what is happening? Like, we've already had dinner 7 times. Like, why is there so much food here? And then, as an AD, you're there at like 3-4 o'clock in the morning. I was a trainee, so I was there really early in the morning. And it was like, semi truck over semi truck, just barreling over people's homes. And then it was like location people would pay off homeless to just move, but like not in a polite way, like get your shit out and move. And it was really alarming to me, like how we treated people where we filmed. And in Los Angeles, we go everywhere. You know, the city is our set. And I don't think we take care of it well enough. And we're working on it, but it's not taken care of with the food. And to sit in a base camp in Skid Row with tents lining the fence and to just take the food, look someone in the face and shovel it in the trash can, we got to stop doing that. You know, it's like, we just got to get it on the other side of the fence. So like for me, I want to help people with the amount of money we have with the food that we have. Like it has to always be that much food, because I understand you have to union requirements that would take like on a union level, changing all of those rules, but we can do something with that waste, right? And I want to change the way the entertainment business thinks about food waste. And I hope that Everyday Action inspires everyone here to do that on a daily basis. When you're out, you see someone on the street, like buy them a leftover, you know, go to McDonald's and buy them a taco or a burger or whatever. And look at that person and look at them like a human being and think about them, because most of them are just like all of us out here, honestly. And even if they're not, it's, again, this is mental, it's about mental awareness, health awareness, and all of those people have a story and we don't know it. So I just hope that the entertainment business starts to show up for the sets we have and for the people that we impact, because it's really easy.
Every company, oh, sorry, go ahead. Go with Hillary.
Oh, sorry, buddy. No, same for me too. I think when I first lived in LA, I was really poor and just eating whatever I could snag on sets at craft service and leftover catering myself. And I remember feeling really lonely in a city of millions. And I had housing, and I was, for the most part, housing insecure, just struggling. And I can't imagine being on the street and having thousands of people pass you every day and not acknowledge your existence. And for Hollywood, it's a huge thing that we love to do here. And I want to change people's mindsets. Like, fine, if you're not going to use us, then your crew members have seen our actions enough that they're going to do it on their own. You know, I really want us to change the way everyone views food waste here in Hollywood sets, from the PAs to the producers. I want everyone to see that there's something you can do. Fine, if you don't want to use us, I would prefer you did, but if not, then at least change your own mindset and how you think about food waste and, you know, those in need. We have over 66,000 people unhoused on the streets of LA, and there's just no reason that we can't give them the thing that we've is trash.
Yeah, I would say that every company has a financial department, and I think every company needs to have a sustainability department. If sustainability departments were built into the company, then we wouldn't have conversations about suicide rates in the entertainment industry, because there would be, entire department meetings discussing the mental well-being of your employees. You also wouldn't have liability talks about giving away food waste, because there would be entire discussions around that, and there would be education from the top down. So I think there needs to be sustainability departments in every company, but particularly the entertainment industry. And that department is what houses most of the decision making, because sustainability touches everything that we're doing. I mean, it touches the economy, it touches your employees. So it could house HR, it could house finance, it touches environmental work. So it could touch your supply chain and the decisions you're making. And so I would see a radical shift in the way businesses are organized, because it's just this ecosystem. Humans love to simplify complex systems, but that's just not how the world is. And so I would like to see more of sustainability ecosystems built into companies.
Yeah, we agree.
Yeah,
We're trying to do that ourselves, and I'm working on a Marvel movie at the moment, and Giles is working on a small independent film for movie, and they're obviously very differently run. And Disney have obviously got a sustainability department. They haven't started yet. We're week -16 in prep, and I mean, there's not even a recycling bin in the production office. So I'm sort of walking around going, you know, what do? I can obviously tell production to get some recycling bins, but they're trying to get internet and everything else, you know, so that's frustrating. But we obviously we don't want to be like the bossy people going, oh, you know, you guys, you're just going to tell us what to do, because crew get told what to do every single day. They get told what, you know, where to go, what to eat, you know, what time they go to the toilet, and, you know, all these things. It's insane. And they don't want to be told another thing to do, like, oh, don't put that in that bin, put that in that bin. And they don't want to be told that, you know. It's annoying. So anything that we can do to help change that and make it easy. And Giles is actually going to trial it on his new film.
So
kind of
being on part, say, that smaller little independent, say, type film, I've been lucky enough to, say, implement the sustainability that we're trying to do, and that's what say I've done. So that's what I'm doing, say, as well as seconding. I'm going to be doing that as well, and we've set these number of, say, things in place, and then we're going to start trying to implement them to make sure that it can happen. And again, say, I had my roadblock was, say, going back to that, was, say, the money and, say, the line producer, but he came on board and he's willing to do it because I'd set out a little plan to go forward, and then everyone wanted to say be involved with that, but everyone wanted to be educated about it, because there was me talking about the numbers, talking about what the difference that they're going to make, and say people are on board and people want to engage with that. It's just about finding a real way of making it, say, simpler, breaking it down, and then allowing everyone to be involved with that situation, which I think is important.
I think, like, in addition to everybody's thoughts, I think the simplest and easiest way is just to treat each other more like humans. Like, especially in our industry, it can be so toxic and so draining and exhausting because people don't treat each other like humans, and that hierarchy pattern that we have. And I don't know what it's like in the industries or the communities that you are all working in, but here in BC with the unions, post-COVID, coming back to work, they have implemented more, you know, the sick days, the mental health days, and like providing more resources, more tools. And if you're not feeling well, you can stay home without that fear of losing your job. And I think it took a whole global pandemic for us to get to that point, you know, even despite all the stories and news that we read for the last like decade or so, or even more, of how bad mental health can get, and seeing those suicide rates and seeing the depression rates and just overall mental health. It's so sad. And it's like, why aren't we shifting that, you know, because people are scared to lose their jobs if they're not showing up every single day. And so that is just like being more understanding, being more human. And then another thing I'd say that I hope to see more of is diversifying these people that are running these sets and telling these stories, because also starts with that. Like I see a huge difference with who's the person leading, like these producers or writers and coordinators, is people coming from different backgrounds with different experiences. They take in account of problems and issues and priorities that some other people that are coming from more privileged backgrounds are not seeing. And, you know, putting like Indigenous voices on the forefront. I think that's a huge thing too, is what communities are being most impacted by our actions, like listening to those voices. So that's something that I want to see more in our industry, in the community, because our industry is so business focused. Like this is like, it's a business, like where everybody's thinking about how to make the most money, how to make the most profit out of telling these stories. It's like even gets past the point of like creating good entertainment. It's like, how do we make that money? And then neglecting everything else. So I think that is another thing too, is like bringing it back to the community, listening to those voices and diversifying those people in those positions of power too.
definitely agree with that. And we're coming up on time. And I just want to say a big thank you to my cohort at YEA, Sarah Summers, who has really held my hand through this. It's my first webinar I've ever run, so I hope that wasn't totally noticeable. Also, a huge thank you for the folks at Simply STEM who are up until midnight. Happy belated birthday to Giles, who celebrated yesterday. We really appreciate you all staying up late, even though you have an early call time tomorrow. And just closing thoughts from me is that an empty trash bin at the end of the day can instill confidence into the workplace. As makers, we're inherently problem solvers, capable of such. And when tasked with figuring out problems occurring in front of the camera, we'll do anything to get the shot. So once we're able to figure out the overwhelming problems happening behind the camera, we'll generate a new breed of pride in our final product. Thank you for joining us. Stay tuned for Young Entertainment Activists' next Reframe and Refocus event, Returning to the Hustle, Therapists Talk Mental Health with Rachel Bloom, this Wednesday, the 26th at 7:30 p.m. Thank you all so much for coming out. We'll try to make this recording available to everybody. And again, I'll try to get that slideshow to everyone as well. Thank you all. Have a great evening.
All.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.